Howdy folks, we're looking at Edge Magazine issue 33, released in June 1996, discussing the future of interactive entertainment. And we see a Wipeout racer on the cover. I think it's a pretty ugly cover though. There's just too much space here, not enough personality. And not only is it focusing on Wipeout 2097, aka Wipeout XL, it's also focusing on Psygnosis, the British company which was at large in the mid-90s thanks to Destruction Derby and Wipeout. I don't know what happened to the company in the long run. I should look that up. So the opening column is actually about how there's a lack of innovation in the new systems, and that there was also a problem with the 16-bit system. So it makes you wonder, when was there a lot of innovation? Well, I think there was plenty of innovation at the time, but except for people trying to make 3D versions of 2D games. So we see a couple of games here. I don't know what this one is. This looks like Looking Glass Studios Fly Limited. We have Dave Perry here. Okay, yeah, the ESTS, well, which keeps getting smaller every year, it seems, even in the 90s. So they're saying losing vital spring in its step. Quake was going to be released soon, so that was the biggest title. Namco showing off Tekken 2. We see MDK, Shiny's last good game, I believe. And some other pictures of, well, there you have Grand Theft Auto. That would become a big one. And like, I don't know which game this is. See, Exhumed is right in here. Death Trap Dungeon was also forgettable. So here's some new news though. Now I don't think the ARM chip was used for the Game Boy Color. This is 1996, so the next Game Boy would be Game Boy Color, but maybe they're apparently already talking about the Game Boy Advance, which would become a big handheld console. They don't want to be like the Atari Lynx, of course. So, some speculation there. More talk of new 3D cards for computers. In this case, the Voodoo chip. And showing off its graphical capabilities. The Pong Man, which would be Nolan Bushnell, is striking back. He wanted to have some kind of... what was it again? He's saying that games are too violent, too aimed at teenage boys. And he wanted to release a series of arcade games which would be good, clean, family fun. I guess something like Nintendo. Well, I don't think anything came out of that. Here's Edge making a comparison to other 3D cards for the PC. Of course, the NVIDIA is still around. More talk about how the graphics chip works and other 3D chips. Yamaha 3D Rage, never heard of that. Apparently some talk about the new Pentium, but couldn't say I was interested in that. Okay, so the Nintendo 64 hasn't been released yet, but they're still speculating on how things will be doing. Talk about Doom 64 being released. Of course, that wouldn't be interesting, but Shadows of the Empire would be interesting, even though only the first level was good. And what was it again? I read this magazine a while ago. I thought I'd remember more of it. There's talk about Mission Impossible already, which will take a couple years to finish. Online gaming. Apparently, this is a... was this the company? Yeah, Wireplay. Some company would help you do online gaming with each other. Just in American Online too. And if you look at the rates, it's amazing. American Online at the cost £6 a month and then you get 5 hours of net access for free, and then you have to pay £2 an hour to keep playing games. Can you believe that? So that's yeah, internet was expensive back then. Chris Crawford again. I think this is his 4th time appearing in the magazine, and he talks about how interactivity is divided into 3 steps. There's the listening, thinking, and finally speaking step, and that computer games are only concerned about the speaking element, i.e. the graphics of a game, and not enough about the thinking, which would be the AI, and definitely not the listening, because even to this day we're still only using joypads to communicate with computers. Voice recognition isn't good enough, but most of all, the computer just doesn't understand what the words mean. And I think I'll be back for one more essay. Here we have the French programmers who made a Little Big Adventure, looking really cool. And this fellow, what was his story again? Working for PlayStation. I guess he worked on D, the game which was released, and then there was D2, of course, for the M2, which wasn't released, as far as I know. And he made the music of these games, or is the president of Warp? I don't know. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I should have remembered more what I read. I was sick last week, so I read it slowly, and now my voice is better finally. But so this fellow, he works on the design and CGI of Wipeout, and we'll see more of that later on. He actually used an Action Man figure to make the graphics in Wipeout. So talk with David Perry. Well, he has a lot of smart things to say. He was working on MDK at the time, which would be released for the PlayStation 1 even. Fantastic looking game. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk about Quake, but I mean, this game looked, if you ask me, even better. There's a lot of talk about programming for the Saturn, how he's saying that they figured out how to program assembly code for the Saturn that really helped. Saturn was probably the last computer console where people actually bothered to do that. But yeah, the Saturn did have a lot of power with all its extra chips, but of course he had to figure it out. The M2, of course, he wasn't that interested in. And he's amazed by Virtua Fighter 2. Like I said, a lot of talk about the Saturn. Quick Draw, another program for making 3D graphics using your computer at home. I don't know, I think this is for the Apple. No, it's for the Mac. It's published by Apple, and it's for the Windows 95 too. I don't know how expensive it is. So, Nights into Dreams. Looking spectacular. Everybody was well aware of what Mario 64 was capable of by then. So, Sega had its 3D platform game. Of course, Nights isn't really 3D. It's 2D actually, but all the fantastic looking 3D graphics gives it a lot of life. It's more of an arcade game than an adventure game. I guess that's why I didn't catch on that well. Mario 64, looking a little bit better than last time. Still not 100% though. Pilotwing 64 looking fantastic. Easily the best looking game on the market when it was released. So nice to fly around, try out all the different crafts. A lot of all-star games being pre-screwed. We have Quake, now looking more like Quake than ever, very brown and mystical. Bit overrated at the time, I believe, but nevertheless, lots of fun to play online. Crash Bandicoot being shown, the platforming series on the PlayStation 1, still alive, recently remade. I don't understand why so many people bothered for the remade version. I mean, Crash Bandicoot never was that good, but okay. Mayhem, I believe this is the same people who made, is this LucasArts? No, that's not helping. Or what do I mean? Okay, so made by Mirage, people who made Rise of the Robots. And it looks like Crusader, if you ask me. I don't think it was a hit. Firefight, another game. This one published with Electronic Arts, but I don't know what it's about, to be honest. It's about shooting things in different craft. Ball Blazer Champions, kind of like Virtual On, I guess. This one for the PlayStation, and didn't make a splash either. I keep seeing advertisements for Zork. Amazed. Okay, so Interactive Magic. Okay, so they do 3D flying games, not Looking Glass, but this game. And Fairly Windows based, as you can see. F-22. Well, these games have been forgotten. I don't know if they were good or not. We'll probably see a review later. This company is from America, and they also have a game being made about the Civil War, decathlon, and a tank game of sorts. Here's that Context by Enix to make a game for them. 200,000 prize. That's a lot. Okay, so this is about Alias. And they are a company that helped with Silicon Graphics. You can see Killer Instinct here. So their work was found in a lot of 90s games in the 90s. This was apparently we saw this on the cover of one of the earlier Edge magazines, Edge 24, and apparently this is a short film actually. So they also used the graphics made by Alias. I should look that up later. What's the name of the movie? They don't say. So look up Chris Landreth. So back issues. Oh, here is Psygnosis. Not a big company in the early 90s or late 80s. I don't remember. I can't recall which games they did have. They were kind of lackluster games. So here's some talk about Sentient and The Fall, and both games would not become hits. Neither would Tanka or The City of Lost Children or Zombie Philby. So Psygnosis had some hits in the mid-90s, but after that they fell again into obscurity. Of course, a lot of talk about Wipeout 2097, but many see it as the best Wipeout game. Okay, so Psygnosis did have Lemmings. That was a big one. And they had another big hit. I think it was Myth. Probably Myth, the game with the catchy song on the Commodore. Or was it Barbarian? So, but the other games, not worth looking at. Like Blood Money and Menace. Dracula, yeah, they made Dracula for the home consoles. Well, lovely movie, but don't bother with the game. I mean, you play Jonathan, what do you expect? Okay, so in Resident Evil getting a review, a 9 out of 10. I didn't like the game at all at the time. I thought that it just wasn't that scary, even though this scene is fantastic with the dog jumping through the window. Nobody will forget that. But if I wanted smart puzzles, there were a lot of other games with better puzzles, and I didn't find the horror convincing. I just got annoyed by the controls. But it was a big hit, so I guess a 9 is deserved. Just don't ask me to play it. But I didn't like Resident Evil 4 that much either, so what do I know? The sequel to Panzer Dragoon, this time called Zwei, of course, German for 2, gets a 7 out of 10. It's more of the same. If I recall correctly, you actually grew up the dragon you're playing with, so that's a new twist, but other than that. Tekken 2 getting a 9 out of 10. Now, Tekken was starting to look okay. Tekken 1 I found horrible. Always have. Tekken 2 is a bit better because it's a bit faster, it seems, and better balanced. Better music, much better character design. And but still, I wouldn't consider it a good fighting game until Tekken 3. But Edge loves it and gives it a 9. So here's Normality Incorporated, a 3D click and carry adventure game, gets a 7. I kind of like the theme. It's rather suburban, but made by Gremlin, also British. Gun Griffin, a mech game, gets a 5 out of 10 for the Saturn. Okay, so here's something new in Edge. Oh, in case you haven't noticed, there's a new layout to Edge. They want it to look more hip and cool. So that has everything to do with there. This looks kind of the same, actually, this pre-screen part, but the reviews looked a bit different. And now Edge is interested in new media, so every month they dedicate a couple pages to things that aren't games, but nevertheless have to do with electronics. I wouldn't say interactive forms of entertainment, because I really don't think books or CDs with programs on it are necessarily interactive, but they look at the Dig, for example, which is based on the video game. Dogs, which I guess is some kind of like program, which is kind of like a Tamagotchi of sorts for your Windows computer, for Windows. Sting apparently has some computer stuff going on if you place his CD in the computer. That was a cool thing to do that back then. So new album by Underworld and Faithless, other bands, I don't know them. The Tekken soundtrack. So that's all cool. Check out this phone by Nokia. You could use the internet. As you can see, it's the Nokia 9000. Released, 1,500 pounds, pretty expensive. And released before they had the 3210, which would become a huge seller. 3310 was even bigger. These still look cool, the mini pod speakers. I don't know what the Sony IPI is, but apparently some kind of Walkman. Here's the Sony mini disc player, which nobody really cared for. Okay, in the arcades you had Star Gladiators, the Capcom fighting game, one of the first 3 ones. I think it was the first in-house 3D fighting game for Capcom. It was really good actually, but the market was saturated with 3D fighting games, and Star Gladiators didn't add much to it actually. Fiber Phase 1 is some side-scrolling shooting game, just like Ultimate Tiger 2. I don't know much about the genre, and these don't look very appealing. Retro Review. So instead of looking at a game here, they have the ColecoVision, released in 1982, which was much stronger than the Atari 2600 or VCS, which is obvious. Known for making arcade ports that were fairly good, much better than the Atari versions. Most people say that Donkey Kong is the best game on the system, but I believe it only had 3 of the 4 levels, so I kind of have a hard time saying it was the best. It had Hero, H-E-R-O, which was a platforming adventure game. That was pretty cool, although it was also on other systems. So yeah, ColecoVision releasing system just before the crash. That was bad luck on their part. And a year later, the Famicom would be released. So that wouldn't last, of course. There's a collection of shooting games by Band Presto, apparently. And Sega has their Aegis series with Afterburner Outrun for the Saturn. So you can play those old games on the Saturn. Don't know if they're arcade perfect. It doesn't say so. And I don't really care. Okay. So more new media stuff. 3D images, the gallery. Well, that was something a lot of people liked looking at. Here's Toy Store. Still looks fantastic, right? This could be a picture. So Toy Store looked really good, but the other games looked kind of meh. Here we have that Action Man figure for Wipeout used. And yeah, a lot of time spent on 3D graphics, which I didn't care much for at the time, but what's this? Some kind of CGI? Studio Max, yeah, that's still being used, I believe, for 3D graphics. I'm not sure though. And so it's 2,700 pounds. Go for it, I would say, if you want to make your own games. And when you're on the edge of the magazine, the ads for people to work in the industry. Here we have the letters. Oh, geez, I totally forgot what these letters are about, of course. So let's take a quick look. Yeah, talk about Nintendo not using CDs again. I keep talking about that. It was a mistake, and I don't know if it was a mistake, to be honest. I don't think the consumer really cared much difference. The problem with the Nintendo 64, of course, was that the licensing things, and then simply everybody have a PlayStation. So why not make a cheaper game for the PlayStation? I guess it does have to do with the CD. Games would be cheaper, but Nintendo simply didn't dominate the market like the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo did, so they couldn't demand all companies go for their system. Talk about Nintendo being cutesy. Well, it's so 1994, the discussion. So let's talk about Nintendo. And this person talking about, yeah, the PC could do things that consoles can't, but yeah, you're going to pay so much. Actually, this person is saying how, yeah, you should just get a console if you want 3D games, because PCs are too expensive. And some talk about the 3DO still. But somebody complaining about 3DO not getting enough attention and say, yeah, what about Captain Quasar and Battle Sport and Striker 96? And they're just like, well, those games suck, so sorry, we're not going to look at them. If games were better, we would give 3DO more attention. And a preview for next time. What do we see here? PC market, I see mentioned. Controllers would be looked at. Oh yeah, they do have an interview with Bill Gates. That's pretty interesting. I don't recognize this game. Is this Hexen or something? So that's for issue 34. And this has been issue 33. A little Japanese, or maybe Chinese cat saying hello to us. And that was Edge 33, June 1996, and hope the next video for 34 comes a bit earlier. I'll be less sick next coming days, so that should be fun. And I hope to prepare better, actually remember what's in the magazine. Hope you enjoyed seeing this issue, and I'll see you next time.